Hello again and welcome to another Mordy and Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode we shall be talking about Taurox Primes, the iconic transport for the Militarum Tempestus Scions. With the decrease in points to the elite of the Guard, there have been a few people curious about Scions, and this includes their transport, the Prime. But as someone who has used Taurox Primes extensively, they are a little bit trickier than your average Chimera. And so we're going to do a bit of a deep dive today, going through their advantages, their disadvantages, and what they actually feel like to use on the tabletop. And so without further ado, let's not mess around any further. Let's mount up, roll out, and drive right into today's episode.
Attention Guardsmen, the Commissariat has detected you have not yet liked this video. Do so immediately or else you will face the Emperor's wrath. And anyone who has not yet subscribed to the channel will be transferred to the penal battalions. That is all. Move out!
Let us begin with a brief overview of the Taurox Prime's datasheet. Starting off, we have its stat line. It has a movement of 12 inches, a toughness of 8, a 3+ save, 10 wounds, leadership 7, and objective control of 2. As standard, each Taurox comes equipped with a battle cannon, twin hotshot volley gun, and armored tracks. You can swap out the battle cannon for a Gatling cannon or a missile launcher, and you can swap out the volley guns for a twin autocannon. You can also give it a storm bolter on top of what other main weapons it has. The Prime can transport up to 12 Militarum Tempestus infantry or Astra Militarum infantry characters. So if you have someone like a Psyker attached to a Scion squad, they can all go inside the Taurox Prime. Taking a look at the range weapons for the Taurox Prime, it has the Taurox battle cannon, which is blast, 48-inch range, D6 shots, so a bit swingy. It's not like a normal battle cannon with D6 plus 3. It is ballistic skill 3+, strength 8, AP -1, and 2 damage. We then have the Taurox Gatling cannon, which has got a 24-inch range with 12 shots at ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. The Taurox missile launcher can either fire frag or crack. The frag fires at 48-inch range, 2d6 shots, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. And the Taurox missile launcher crack fires 2 shots at the same range, ballistic skill 3+, strength 9, AP -2, damage d6. Finally, we have the twin Taurox hotshot volley gun. These are a little bit different to the volley guns that you find on your Scion squads. Firstly, they've got a 30-inch range. They fire 3 shots with rapid fire 3, so you'll get 6 shots at 15-inch range. They are twin linked for rerolls to wound, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, AP -1, damage 1. One of the things that makes the Taurox Prime so appealing as a unit is its fire support ability. In your shooting phase, after this model has shot, select one enemy unit that was hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly model that disembarks from this transport this turn makes an attack that targets the enemy unit, you can reroll the wound roll. So now that we have an idea of what the Taurox Prime is bringing to the table, what are some of its advantages and disadvantages, both just generally as including them in your list and when comparing them to some of the other transports in the Imperial Guard? Well, as someone who has played a lot of pure Scions, your natural inclination is to basically deep strike everything. And deep striking Scions is a very, very powerful tactic. However, the sad reality of the fact is that you are going to need to start off with some things on the table. And if you just deep strike everything, or you don't have enough assets to start on the table, what you'll find is your opponent will pressure you early. A good opponent will see that you don't really have much starting off, and the harder that they can run you down, the harder it's going to be for you to bring stuff in. And they might even screen you out, so you end up deploying in your turn 2 in your deployment zone anyway. So auto deep striking everything is not necessarily the right call. And having assets like the Taurox Prime available means that you can be like, okay, I'm not going to deep strike these units. I'm going to instead plan to put these on the board from the get-go, so that if I do face someone who will pressure me early, it's not going to completely undo the whole full deep strike thing. On top of this, adding Taurox Primes into your list gives you an extra level of mobility from the start of the game. Taurox Primes move faster than most other transports. If you compare it to the Chimera, it's got an extra 2 inches of move, for example. Now that extra 2 inches might not seem like a lot, and I know in your endo, but actually it does make a big difference, especially when you combine it with the fact that the Taurox Prime's profile is significantly smaller and narrower than that of a Chimera. This slighter profile combined with the extra movement I found meant that Taurox Primes were really able to nip around the board quite quickly, and if I wanted to get onto an objective turn 1, even if I hid out of line of sight, I typically could achieve that if I wanted to. Overall, it kind of felt like a Taurox Prime with some Scions in it had the same early game map mobility as a Chimera with some Catachans in it. But of course, the advantage that the Taurox Prime has over the Chimera is that when you get there, the payload that you can deliver can do quite a lot of damage. Scions which jump out of a Taurox Prime and then receive the fire support ability from the Taurox Prime, if they're shooting an enemy unit that's on an objective, will lay down some serious damage output. It's not hard at all to engineer a scenario where you have a unit of 10 Scions that can jump out of a Taurox Prime and receive orders, because what's really important about the transport capacity of the Taurox Prime is it could just transport Astra Militarum infantry characters. They don't need to be attached to the Scion squad. So, for example, you could have a Caning Castellum and just pop him in a Taurox Prime along with 10 Scions and then disembark them all at the same time. Sure, that Castellan isn't attached to the Scion squad, but when he disembarks, he can do an order, and he can order those Scions. This gives you a unit of Scions with first rank fire, second rank fire, shooting 7 plasma shots, because you've got the pistol from the sergeant as well, and they'll have 4 rerolls to hit and 4 rolls to wound, and then you'll have 2 melter gun shots as well, and then you'll have 15 hotshot rifle shots, and again, all with good rerolls, good hitting, good wounding. You can really start stacking on those wounds, and considering that all of the Scion guns have some form of AP, even if your opponent is in cover, it is going to start taking its toll. And don't forget that you do have the plasma pistol from the Castellum, and you also have the Daka that you'll be bringing for the Taurox Prime itself. Now, those of you who are veterans of this channel will maybe notice something a bit strange. Normally when I talk about mechanized forces, infantry inside transports, I often say the last thing you want to do is get out of the transport. You want to stay in there, because the whole point of the transport is to keep your guys safe. This is a key difference between regular guard and Scions. With Scions, you don't want to pile everyone out too early on because you'll overexpose yourself. It is very much about husbanding your resources, but you do want to pile out of your transport. Even if Catachans can just happily stick the flames out the firing deck, but the Taurox Prime doesn't have one of those, which is a disadvantage. But you want to get out because you want to start triggering all of these crazy abilities like fire support and stormtroopers. So regular guard mech forces, they drive onto objectives and the guys stay in. Scion mechanized forces, they drive onto the objectives, they get out, they clear the objective. Now, I mentioned one of the disadvantages of the Taurox Prime a moment ago, the lack of firing deck. I want to cover a few more of them because it's a good vehicle, but there are a few problems with it which aren't immediately apparent until you start using the vehicle. Firstly, it is one of the more expensive guard transports, coming in at 90 points a pop. That makes it 20 points more than a Chimera at the time of recording. And speaking of the Chimera, oh boy is the Taurox Prime fragile in comparison to it. It might not seem like such a big deal. Toughness 8 versus toughness 9, 11 wounds versus 10 wounds, but it makes such a difference. The 10 wounds means that it is relatively easy for damage 2 shots to grind you down, whereas the Chimera, it just takes that extra damage 2 shot knock out. You've also got the fact that toughness 8 means that your Taurox Prime is going to be eminently susceptible to what would normally be supplementary anti-tank. This is things like Melter and its equivalent, and especially Plasma and its equivalent. Melter guns are going to be wounding you on 3s. That is going to feel very, very 8th, 9th edition. And people who play those editions will tell you vehicles were not worth their salt back then. And then you've also got the fact that your plasma, or enemy plasma I should say, is going to be wounding you on 4s. It's just so much easier to wound the Taurox Prime. And it's, as someone who's used them, as someone who's taken them to several tournaments and has used them in practice games and battle ports and everything, it really shocked me. It really shocked me how fragile my Taurox Primes felt after using loads of chimeras. They will pop. They will get blown up. They will get destroyed once they are exposed. Unlike a chimera that can kind of move out, weather the storm a little bit, maybe live, maybe die, the Taurox Prime, the moment the enemy can see it, the moment they can shoot it with any kind of firepower, it's probably going to go down. And you need to take that into account when you're planning on using these in your games. With all of that said, one of the biggest questions I get about the Taurox Prime is, what loadout should I take? Should I go down the Gatling cannon route or the missile launch route? What about the volley guns versus the autocannons? Well, generally speaking, Taurox Primes can be sorted into two different preferred loadouts. Firstly, you have the Punchy Prime, and secondly, you have the Daka Prime. Now, the Punchy Prime focuses on trying to give the Taurox Prime the ability to engage enemy vehicles. This is where you go for the Taurox missile launcher because it has the cracked rockets, and then you also give it the twin autocannon. Now, when I first started playing Scions in 10th edition, I presumed that the missile launcher and the autocannon would be the better loadout. After all, 10th edition is an edition of vehicles. It's an edition of monsters, and anything that can help you deal with those is the right choice, right? I mean, those missile launcher cracked rockets, they're AP2, they're decent damage, that's decent anti-tank, right? And that twin autocannon's got twin linked. That can tear a chunk out of enemy vehicles, right? No. Frankly, the Punchy Prime is a trap. I have tried it extensively, and this is when we're running pure Scions. We're not mixing it with other stuff in the guard. We're going just Scions and Scion-related accessories. And the Punchy Prime, it wants you to believe it can deal with vehicles. It's trying to sell you the Scion dream, but it can't. Take a step back. Look at the wider picture. Would you consider on a regular guard unit a missile launcher to be good anti-tank? No. Missile launchers are trash right now. It's all about las cannons. Las cannons are good anti-tank. Anything that's strength 12 or higher is proper anti-tank. Anything below that is at best supplementary anti-tank. Because the issue is, if you go for anything that's less than strength 12, most vehicles you encounter, you're going to be wounding on 4s at best and probably 5s most of the time. And that's the issue with the Taurox Prime. The missile launcher, it might be the best anti-tank option that the Taurox Prime can take, but it is, in comparison to the bigger picture, an absolutely trash anti-tank option. Don't be fooled. I took 5 Taurox Primes to tournament. Every single one of them had the Punchy Prime loadout. After my first game, I was begging, I was wishing that I had stuck to going with the Daka Prime. Now, before we get to the Daka Prime, one thing I want to say is, if you want anti-tank in your Scion army, then you want to be relying upon your Scions getting the 4-year-olds to wound from fire support, or you want to throw off the shackles of tradition and go for a hybrid Scion army, where you are happy to take Scions and then back them up with some traditional guard units like tank commanders, Rogel Dawns, and other things which can punch hard. But moving back to the Taurox Prime and looking at the Punchy Prime loadout, this is where you go for the Taurox Gatling Cannon and you go for the twin Taurox Hotshot Volley Gun. Now, between the Gatling Cannon, the Hotshot Volley Gun in rapid fire range, and the Storm Bolter, you have a vehicle that's putting out 22 anti-infantry shots. And sure, anti-infantry isn't the most meta thing, but when most of your Scions are running around with relatively low shot guns like Melter and Plasma, the one thing that might overwhelm you, the one thing that might catch you by surprise, is going to be a Horde. And we have Hordes on the rise. We have got guard players just turning up to tournaments more often, and a lot of guard players are taking 80 to 100 infantry. You've also got Tyranid Unending Swarm, which is slowly being recognized as a very potent way to run your Tyranids. And then, of course, you've got the Green Tide, Orcs have just dropped in a big way, and the second most popular playstyle for the army is Green Tide. Long story short, you want your Scions to handle the big stuff, and they should be able to do it if they've got full rerolls to wound plus some orders. And you want your Taurox primes to get them there quickly and to give you a bit of an insurance policy against anyone that turns up with a big horde of infantry. Some of you may be wondering about the Taurox battle cannon. It's actually not a bad gun this edition, and if you are pretty certain you're going to be facing some big hordes, then you can really take advantage of its blast rule. I just wish it was D6 plus 3 shots. Frankly, if it was D6 plus 3 shots, even with it only being strength 8, -2, damage 2, I would probably have said it should be the go-to weapon for the Dakka Prime, because then between the D6 plus 3, which is an average of 7, and then you've also got the potential +4 from blast, you could be looking at 10 or 11 shots every single time this thing fires, and that's pretty good for dealing with hordes. But unfortunately, it's just a little swingy, and I prefer the reliability of the 12 shots over the maybe big fat 1 shot. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you believe in the punchy prime, or are you a traditional disciple of the Dakka Prime? Also, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.